Mel told me I have to face this way today because I always face that way. So we'll try. Hey, how you doing? You all right? Yeah, if you have just joined us or you're visiting, we are in, as Mel said, in the midst of 2 weeks of, intentional prayer and fasting. We did it last year, for those of you who don't know, and it was such a gift to us as a community, but also as a greater region too, that we thought, let's just do this again. It was good. It's good just to, be still, to press in. But as you know, when you're still and you press in, it can be difficult. Yeah? For how many of you that are fasting at the moment, all honesty, it's been a difficult week? Anybody? Okay, geez, not many. Wow. Okay, well, that's good. How many of you have you just felt like a greater sense of clarity and you can hear a little bit better? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, cool. As always, there's not many things that we ask you to do definitively. We give lots of invitations here at church. Particularly here, we know that we're in all sorts of different spots along our journey. But there are some things that are powerful when we do, and particularly when we do them in community, it lends a lot of strength. But we thought that during this time and over a couple of months, we'd look at some of the spiritual disciplines, right? And I think partially they should be called spiritual gifts because, yes, they require some work and some effort, but the gift that we get back for doing them is phenomenal. So the first week, we looked super briefly at fasting. And then last week, Ross spoke about the discipline of time in God's word. How like daily, that should be something that we're diving into. Time in God's word. And Kirsty gave us some practical examples of how just even having a plan for the year is really instrumental at just giving us vision and just some consistency about getting in the word. And Kirsty also just shared some really powerful stories of how the rhema, that voice of God, as we just journey through our days, how much God just longs to speak to us in those daily moments, just to give us truths, give us wisdom, and just to remind us of who he is and what he said to us. I hope that really encouraged some of you last week. I hope that some of you went away and said, all right, God, I love you. I want to be in your word more. I'm going to find a Bible plan just to sink my teeth into. It's super easy if you read the Bible online, which 1 billion people across the world do now. It's really easy just to go and get a Bible plan from there that you can either read online or pick it and just study it. But purpose and drive, it just helps us keep us focused. But I'd be even more inclined, and I won't get you to raise your hands for this one, but how many of you just stopped as Kirsty invited us, just to ask God's perspective on what's going on in our present day reality when things get too much for us? Like, what a gift to have the Spirit live within us. We just stop and we just be still and we turn inward and we just say, hey, you just want to speak to us now? Well, really, that's where we're going after today. Our third kind of spiritual discipline that we're going to look at today is rest, stillness and rest. And we're also going to have a little bit of a look at the Sabbath. But I've got this verse up there for you this morning. Psalm 46 verse 10 says, be still and know that I am God. What happens if you're not still? It was about 10 years ago, I was fresh as a pastor at TCF. I was an associate pastor many moons ago. I think it was about 2011. I remember walking with my mentor, Chris Daines. We were down like on that, on the path above, you know where the pools are in Geelong, at East Geelong? Yep, so we're up the top there looking down. It was kind of a coldish day. And I remember we were walking along and I was telling him all the things that were going on in my world and how out of control I felt. And I remember him just asking me, what does Psalm 46 verse 10 say? And, and I could quote it, no worries. Be still and know that I'm God. And I was like, oh, yeah. And then he goes, so what happens if you're not still? And he was really kind. He gave me a minute just to stop and to think, and then bang, it hit me. if I'm not still, I don't know who God is. Now, I could quote that verse. I quoted the verse when he asked me for it. But there's a big difference between knowing and knowing. There's a big difference between information and then something that hits you deep in here that you know through experience. Today, I just want to kind of invite us into a space of going, man, how can I find some stillness to know God? Just to be still, to look within, to experience his reality, his perspective, what heaven says about whatever it is that I'm rolling through at the moment. If we're not still and we rush on, we're going to miss it. Now, let me tell you, for those of you that still don't believe we're in a war, how many moments in the day do you get to be still? Come on, join me. It's hard to be still, isn't it? It's really difficult to be still. In a world that is incredibly fast-paced, everything's moving at 100 miles an hour. You're praised for, the first thing you must say when somebody asks, hey, what's going on for you at the moment? Your first response, it's a word, it starts with B. What is it? Busy. Because if you don't say busy, people are going to look at you like, what do you do with your life? It's a scary thought, though, in our oversaturated, distracting world that stillness will be how we come to know God. You got to hear that, because that's in war with the theory of this world. It's counterintuitive to everything that we've been brought up with. Being still is difficult. We recently went away down to, had a family holiday down to Portland. And I don't know, well, I kind of know some things I don't want to look at, but I find it really difficult to be still. You can ask my wife how much of a pain in the bum I was for the first 3 days. I was irritated by almost everything, frustrated every time there was a plan suggested. Dad didn't want to do it. Anyway, and then on day 3, Kirsty said to me, hey, this has to change. This right here, it's not working for our family, and it's certainly not working for you. And she knows I really struggle to rest and to be still. Why? Maybe you ask it for yourself. Why do you struggle to rest and be still? Now, I think sometimes we place such a high expectation on being busy or doing something, or we must do this, we must do that. I know that's certainly a part of my testimony. There's never enough you can do for God. There's always more we can be doing. It makes being still really difficult. But the second most important thing is a lot of people don't want to be still because they're left alone with themselves. They say that one of the hardest things for a man to do is to go off and be alone by himself. Can I suggest to you, though, that as we talk about stillness, we're talking about finding God, not the insecurities in our mind, but his peace and his presence that dwells within our heart. Big difference. You with me? I hope so. The distractions, though, are endless for our modern day world. The average Gen Z person will spend 6 to 7 hours a day on that little device. 6 to 7 hours a day, sometimes up to 9 hours a day. Phenomenal, isn't it? We're just so desperate for a distraction when God's asking us just to be pause and be still for longer than a 1 minute reel. That's not enough to feed you. As you flick through reels and reels of somebody else's spiritual food, don't be fooled, that's not enough to feed you. God is asking you to be still and to get alone with him. All right, being still takes intentional discipline. Do you have daily times of being still? One of the things that Timmy King, when he was mentoring me back into this pastoral role, he said, mate, you have to start with the end goal in mind and taking time each week to be still and to listen to the voice of the Lord has to be paramount. So on my first day, because some of you know, some of you don't know, but I started a transition just going 1 day, 2 days, then moved up to 3 days over about a 6-month period. But on day 1, I started with half a day listening time. And I've tried to keep that up. How many of you know how hard I have to fight for that listening time every single week? Because there's always more to do, right? Always more to do. But what's the most important thing to do? Be still and know. Because if I'm not still, I think the pressure rests on me or you, and it doesn't. But, we're in a period as a church of intentional rest. I want to share with you something, and I hope I'm not the only one experiencing this. But it's crazy how, as we're fasting from food, I was saying to Kirsty this week, I can't believe how much less, right, Marketplace, Facebook Marketplace, for those of you who don't know, Facebook Marketplace, but my phone or even the TV, it's almost like the desire for it has been so much less. I was really surprised by it. I was almost shocked by Thursday rolled around and I'm like, man, usually I just look forward to coming home and having some downtime, right? Sitting in front of the idiot box or whatever. We call it mind-numbing stuff. It's crazy. I don't need that. I don't want that. Isn't it funny how the more we turn our affection towards him, he actually just draws us deeper into him. We're not constantly looking for counterfeit comforts to go and get our needs met because they're being met in the right way. We're satisfied. I hope that some of you have found something pretty similar this week, that maybe not the first few days when the flesh is crying out, but afterwards, as you begin to get that greater level of clarity, you want him more than the things of the world. It's cool. Anyway, so we're on an intentional 2-week period as a church to be still. We've rostered this in. And by the grace of God, unless he says something else, hey, February next year, guess where we'll be? Because the fruit is so good, we don't want to miss out on it. Later on in the year, we'll do another 24/7 prayer week because, again, we know what it's like when we just take time to stop and be still and to know that he's God and to hear what he wants to say over us, to allow him to be exalted in the earth and in the heavens. All right, I want to talk to you a little bit about the gift of the Sabbath. You want to flick up Exodus 20 for us there? So I want to talk a little bit now about the Sabbath. Now, the Sabbath, I just want to say this from the outset. The Sabbath was given as part of the law of Moses. So it was the 4th of the 10 Commandments. This was something that Israel had to do to be in relationship with God. All right? So there's only a couple of bilateral covenants in the Bible. Most are unilateral. Bi, meaning two, meaning it involved God and man, okay? But most of the big covenants, especially the great one that Jesus broke for us, that he did, that's a unilateral, meaning it was all Jesus, not us, so to speak. But this one, the gift of the Sabbath, this was something that God commanded Israel as a people to do. Let's read it. Exodus 20 verse 8. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the 7th day is a Sabbath day to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work. Neither you, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your male or female servant, nor your animals, nor any foreigner residing in your towns. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea and all that is in it. But he rested on the 7th day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. All right. So the Sabbath was given as a commandment. It had to be kept. It started on Friday evening and went to Saturday evening. All right. It was about 25 hours. And it was a religious observance that in the Old Testament people were instructed to keep. But how many of you know God doesn't give us things to bind us up He gives us things to actually set us free and keep us in relationship with him. I hope you agree. All right. So we are no longer now required under our new covenant with Jesus to strictly or religiously observe the Sabbath. All right? So in a couple of passages in Romans 14, Paul talks extensively about different things that we can do differently now, and it's about your conscience when it comes to food, when it comes to things like Sabbath. And then also in Colossians 2:16, it says this, therefore do not let anyone judge you by what you eat or drink, or with regard to religious festivals, a new moon celebration or a Sabbath day. These are a shadow of the things that were to come. The reality, however, is found in Christ. So what's he saying? He's saying there that it's no longer a religious observance. But can I tell you, the early church still practiced it. And do you know, it's crazy that in the last year, spiritual disciplines have really risen to the foreground. I'm astounded at how many of my friends who are in an age and stage of life like us with kids, how many of them are actually turning the screens off at 5 o'clock, lighting a candle, sitting down and having a meal together on a Friday night and not turning the screens back on again till Saturday the next night because they're trying to practice the Sabbath. They're drawing in together. Heaps of people are doing it now. Our family does a Tuesday night Sabbath. We turn off the screens, we just sit, we just enjoy a meal together. Maybe we should light a candle. Could be dangerous. Elsie loves blowing out candles, so probably just go out all the time. All right, but even though we're not required to practice the Sabbath anymore, I want to bring out a couple of things that I think are really significant to us. 3 things. Reasons why God gave the Sabbath. I'll show you a little bit about how man destroyed it. And why I think we can take some of the practices out of the Sabbath that are still really good for us to practice as individuals and families today. Number 1, holy rest. Holy rest. All right. Holy rest is the goal. So they were commanded to not work, but to make the day holy, meaning that it was to be set apart for God. All right. They were supposed to use their time to stop work and enjoy some intimacy with God, to stop and actually enjoy the fruits of their labor. How many of you know a workaholic? Some people just love to work and work and work and build the barns real big, and then bang, their life might be taken for them before their very eyes, before they even get to enjoy what they've saved up. But see, what happened was God gave them the gift of the Sabbath, right? There's one command, you shall not work, right? It's a day holy and set apart to the Lord. Here's the deal. They made 39 different ordinances to go with that of things that you could and couldn't do in relation to work. And then over time, there have been all those little ordinances, even more and more and more things added to try and keep them within the framework of not breaking the Sabbath. They put so many rules and boundaries around it, right, that it stopped them from actually going to the heart of what it was about. Holy rest unto the Lord. You know, you can go to some places in Melbourne where they've got all these little lines and ropes and different things around the suburbs. So it shows you how far you can walk on the Sabbath day so that you don't break it. Mark 2:27. You might have that. You can throw that up if you want, Maxie. Jesus said this when they had a go at him for breaking the laws of the Sabbath. Jesus said to them, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. You know what that means? It means God gave you the gift of the Sabbath for you and for your benefit. He doesn't want to bind us up with rules and stuff that's going to make life difficult. No, he wants you to find freedom. It's supposed to be a day free from toil and into rest, like what God did after he completed creation. I want you to turn with me, if you got your Bibles, we're going to read from Matthew 12, 1 through to 14. This is Jesus giving some healthy correction on what the Sabbath is. We'll fly through this really quick. At that time, Jesus went through the grain fields on the Sabbath. His disciples were hungry and began to pick some of the heads of grain, and they ate them. And when the Pharisees saw this, they said to him, "Look, your disciples are doing what is unlawful on the Sabbath." He said, "Haven't you read what David did when he and his companions were hungry?" In 1 Samuel. He entered the house of God, and he and his companions ate the consecrated bread, which was not lawful for them to do, but only for the priests. Or haven't you read in the law that on the Sabbath, the priests in the temple desecrate the day and yet are innocent? That's because they had to work. I tell you that one greater than the temple is here. And if you had known what these words mean, I desire mercy, not sacrifice, you would not have condemned the innocent. For the Son of Man is Lord of the Sabbath. Going on from that place, he went into their synagogue, and there was a man with a shriveled hand was there. Looking for a reason to accuse Jesus, they asked him, "Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath?" We're going to keep reading, but just pause there for a second. Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath? Can you grasp in your minds how twisted things had become for the people of God? They're asking, is it okay to save somebody? Is it okay to see somebody get healed? Is it okay for somebody to encounter God on the Sabbath? In verse 11, this is what he says back to him. If any of you has a sheep and it falls into the pit on the Sabbath, will you not take hold of it and lift it out? How much more valuable is a man than a sheep? Therefore, it is lawful to do good. Can you say good? Bit louder, good. Thank you. It is lawful to do good on the Sabbath. Then he said to the man, "Stretch out your hand." So he stretched it out and it was completely restored, just as sound as the other. Listen to this. But the Pharisees went out and plotted how they might kill Jesus. Hey, don't get it twisted. When God asks you to be still, he is asking for it for your benefit. Like, we got to get our perspective right. If you're taking notes, the second point is the Sabbath is a time to do good. It's a gift from the Lord to do good things. Jesus showed us it's not about religious observance, it's about actually enjoyment. He allowed his disciples to pick grain as they walked through the fields and eat it. Do you know how many times the Bible shows us he healed on the Sabbath? It's trying to make a point. Because it's those moments of being still when we turn inwardly and we look for the voice of the Lord. It's crazy. But we really live by the theology here in this church that God is still speaking. So we believe that he will talk to us and he will encourage us and he will call us into things that he's actually doing right there around us at any given moment. So we want to be still because it has a radical effect on the people around us. How many of you know you are God's ambassadors to the world around you? He's going to use you to reach the lost around you. You need to be still so that you know what's going on. And when you find it, if God asks you to do something, the Sabbath is the time to do good. Thirdly, becoming like God. That's the third principle I want to bring out of the Sabbath, right? Because you'll notice there at the end of that passage in verse 11, he quotes a section from Genesis 2, I think it's 1 to 2 or 1 to 3. He quotes this passage from Genesis talking about how God, after he created in 6 days, then on the seventh day he stopped and he rested from his work. Well, fast forward, Hebrews actually chapter 4 spends an extensive amount of time explaining that God entered that rest on the seventh day, and guess what? He's never come out. God entered that rest on the seventh day and he's never come out. He doesn't need to. He lives in an eternal place of rest. All the good he does comes from rest. Isn't that crazy? And so in our series, we're looking at spiritual disciplines. And if you remember back 2 weeks ago, we said we are training for godliness. The goal is godliness, right? We are trying to become like God. As Jeff spoke about this morning, 2 Corinthians 3, the goal is that we will be, right, conformed, transformed, however you want to look at it, into the image of Christ from one degree to the next. The goal is godliness, for you to become like Jesus. Right? So that's why I think the Sabbath is actually a gift to us to become more like God. Why? Because the more you're still, the more you know God, the more you understand God, the more you actually start to live and think and behave and respond like God. But we get to enter into God's rest with him. Now just think. I know I'm asking you to think back again, but 2 weeks ago we looked at, the fruits of the flesh and the fruits of the Spirit. The fruits of the flesh were horrible. The fruits of the Spirit were amazing. How amazing would it be to live in the same rest and the same peace that the Father lives in? We want to carry the eternal Sabbath with us each day we walk. Sabbath is no longer restricted to a Friday to Saturday for us. We're promised his rest and to be able to enter his rest whenever we choose it. You can have peace over your mind no matter what you face, knowing that the battle is already won if you want it. It's possible for you to live and to carry the same peace that Jesus lived in the entire time he walked the earth. When he said, my peace I give to you, my peace I leave you. I do not give it to you as the world does, so do not let your hearts be troubled. This kind of peace is promised to us on the daily, the minutely. You can have it whenever you want. It's not just promised to us on our day of rest, but it's actually a promise for our entire life. Rach, why don't you come join me? I'm gonna just, like we said we do this each week. I think it's good to do. We just want somebody else to talk and to share their little bit of experience about how they find stillness and quietness with God in their current season, whatever it is going on, like Kirsty last week spoke about how she reads the word and how God speaks to her in that. Rach is just going to share this. I'm just going to interview Rach and ask her a couple of questions. But you are a Gen Z, so how do you even go from being able to switch off your phone to be able to engage in God? Like, how do you have regular times of Sabbath in your week?
Well, first of all, rest is actually a choice. It's a choice if you want to be still and to restore. And I think for me personally, I've gone through so many health battles and chaotic family situations that it actually brings you to a point where you need to rest. And God actually pulls you out of chaos and he brings you into rest. And coming from a Gen Z perspective, we always have our phones and social media and everything so available to us. And I think it's in the uncomfortable times or the things that we don't conform to that actually we learn a lot from. So I am pretty mindful on my technology. I have a day of the week that I switch it off completely. And then, just make those disciplines a habit. It's where you come to a point where you, choose to do it because it's a choice It's not someone forcing you to do it. It's actually you benefit from it, like you were saying. But yeah, it is pretty hard seeing a lot of teenagers and this new generation coming around just being so focused on just that quick attention that we have to stimulate our minds to. And I've also done like a lot of research like with our mind and nervous system things. And it's just, you have to really rewire your brain to think differently. And in this new generation, their mind just goes straight to technology because that's all they know. They don't know the still streams of waters. They don't know the falling green leaves that, God gives us that we can just go to and just find that peace. But the word is also so important in that stillness, and that's why with things like technology, it is good to have the word on your phone, have it up on your home screen so you see it, or something visual that you can just come and remind yourself to be still and rest.
Cool. So you take a day a week just to turn the device off and be still. One thing I will say, I worked at the Gordon for a period of time, and we had such a problem with kids bringing their phones in. It's about 5-6 years ago, maybe longer. It's such a problem with kids bringing their phones into class all the time, but we couldn't take their phones off them because of phone anxiety. So people need to have their phones with them. So we had to get, I know it sounds funny, but it's actually a syndrome now for people. It's crazy. And that's what our kids are growing up with. It's horrendous. So we had to get these special bags that they use in comedy festivals, because the comic artists don't want you filming the routine and chucking it up on social media. It ruins it for every other person that's going to pay and go and see their comedy show. So they got these little bags. So it's sealed. You tap on and it seals, and then you tap on and it opens. You tap them on in class so you can actually feel the comfort of your phone with you, but you can't access it. Isn't that crazy? But like to hear somebody from a Gen Z generation saying, hey, now this thing won't control me. I can have a day without you. I mean, the world's going to have chaos again tomorrow. I'll just pick up with tomorrow's chaos. I'll leave today's chaos for a day, and I'll just pick up on tomorrow's where it starts, right? But that's crazy that Rach can have a day a week where she just puts her phone away, regularly presses into the Lord, looks for him. We've spoken today too, like a little bit about and we'll come back to it, but that eternal rest that God actually invites us into. Because some of you might be in a season where you're actually not busy at all, and God still might be asking you to rest. And it can feel really counterintuitive and unproductive. But anyway, why don't you tell us a little bit about your season at the moment?
Yeah. So growing up, my family never rested. We would just go, go, go. I think the word rest always resided with laziness. And so coming back, I just did some time away last year on a mission field, and it was pretty go, go, go all the time. And then I came back, and within 24 hours of me getting here, I actually ended up in hospital for a week. And what a blessing that actually was, because I knew if I wouldn't have been in hospital for a week, I would have been catching up with people and really running around and just trying to get things done like schedulely. And because I had a plan to go back overseas in like 2 weeks from when I had gotten back. But when I was in hospital, God just fully put up walls, and he's like, Rachel, stop. And I remember just sitting there in like the hospital bed, and I was like, Lord, but I want to go. And he goes, I know, but stop. Like, look around you. And it was quite a challenging decision within my own mind and even my own character, because as I began to like really ponder on it and really, sink into what God was saying about stopping and just being still, he said, you need to restore. You need to be well, and then I'll send you again. And he really just put that word restore on my heart. Rest and restore and wait. And I'm still waiting. But That's okay, because in this time I've just been able to really press into God. I've just really been able to have self-disciplines of waking up in the morning and spending quiet time with God. It's about catching him in the morning so you're not chasing him the rest of the day. It's about just having that stillness. And there'll be times when even now I've like gone to apply for jobs and just about to go and like send in my resume or something, and I just feel the Lord just be like, nope, don't send it. And I'm like, but I did all this work. He goes, yes, but you didn't have to. Like, I've called you to stop, restore, and wait. And it was quite challenging because I was talking to a lot of friends when I came back, and they're like, oh, this is not like you. This is not your character. And I was like, yeah, I feel like God's really going to pull something out of my heart from this. And he has. It's that intimacy that you have. It's that eternal rest. It's being okay with the chaos around you while you have that inner peace of Christ. And I think as I see other people in busy lives or running around, I'm so grateful that I can just stop and like enjoy just seeing like the waves roll in, seeing the simple things, because that's what God's created us to be and not do. Yeah.
Let me assure you, for any of you that may have some judgmental thoughts going on, Rachel's definitely not lazy. She's not lazy. Even I feel convicted near her. But how many of you know, though, that's actually really important too, that we are called to, and it's one of the Old Testament covenants, we're supposed to let the ground rest after 7 years. So you work a field for a piece of time, then you let it rest. I was chatting with Sarah this week. It's Glastonbury, is that how you say it? The music festival? Yeah, so it's off this year. They're taking an intentional year to let the ground rest. And if you've seen photos of how many people go and storm that site every year and how trashed it is afterwards, you can see exactly why they're calling it a sabbatical year to let the ground rest. And some of you just may be fighting God, who's calling you into rest. And it's scary and it's unknown and there's anxiety that goes along with it. It's counterproductive in this world, but it may be exactly what he's calling you into. Fighting it's not going to help. You might end up in hospital like Rachel. Is there anything else you want to say to us on this subject before we keep playing on?
For me, something practical is worship. There was one song, I think, a few months back that was played here, and it's called Lean Back. And this song really touched my heart. And it was during the season that I was meant to go away, but I stayed and, restored and rested. But in the lyrics it says, I'll lean back in the loving arms of my beautiful Father. And then it says, breathe deep. Know that he is good and he has got a love like no other. And then it goes on and it says, I've brought you here to rest. I brought you here to breathe. I won't move until it sinks in. And it's really starting to sink in now, his love through rest. And so I really just encourage you guys to find even a song of worship, a place of worship, whether that's just looking over the ocean views or down by a stream, or that is with people. But I encourage those sacred personal times with God to really, talk to your heart, because it really does overflow from a place of that. And you can still work in an act of obedience of rest because it comes naturally, whereas when it's forced, it's more of an exhaustion. So, yeah.
Thanks, Rach. You're awesome. Thanks, mate. All right. It's good. I was thinking it takes intentionality to be still. The pace of this world, the pace of your mind, it's going to take you being pretty intentional to be still. And I think the Father wants us to discover his eternal place of rest so we can carry it within us no matter where we go. With some of you, he's going to call into some pretty heavy spots. And he wants you to be able to know that you carry peace within you no matter where you go. The famous theologian Dallas Willard, who loves spiritual disciplines, he was asked a question one day. Somebody said, hey, if you could describe Jesus in just one word, what would you say? The word he used was relaxed. I just find that so astounding. But think about it. The Saviour of the world is born. For 30 years, we know that he made one temple trip. Well, we know he probably went to the temple every year. But we're told almost nothing about the first 30 years of his life. And then bang, the ministry starts to begin, and then 3 years unfolds, just 3 years, and then he says, it's time I go. We know that Jesus still observed the majority of the religious laws of the Sabbath too. He called himself the Lord of the Sabbath, so he was still a day a week. But I just want you to think about that. Like, would you define your life as relaxed? No. Why not? Where are the places that give you anxiety, that you're stressing more than he is? Where are the places that are out of your control, where the Father just says, hey, lean back, I got this. Like, do you believe it's possible for you to enter that peace and that eternal rest no matter what you're facing? Why don't you stand? Why don't you close your eyes or look at something softly while I read this out to you from Hebrews 4. Therefore, since the promise of entering in his rest still stands, let us be careful then that none of you fall short of entering it. For we have had the gospel preached to us also, just as they did. But the message they heard was of no value to them because they heard it but did not combine it with faith. You know what he's saying? Please do not let what you have heard today be something you intellectualize with your mind when it's going to require an exercise of faith in your heart to believe and to activate. You cannot enter into his rest with your intellect alone. You have to go deeper than that, into your heart, into his heart, to know that he's got it sorted. Verse 9 says, there remains then a Sabbath rest for the people of God. It's you and me. For anyone who enters God's rest also rests from his own work, just as God did from his. Let us therefore make every effort to enter that rest. God, I just want to ask that you will allow us as your kids. Will you give us the same internal reality that Jesus lived and did mission with. We want the same access to the peace that he carried, that we could carry it too. That our hearts and our minds will be stilled, that we will actively trust you, knowing that you just have it all together. God, I just pray that you'll do something deep within us that you've established, this last week, and then as we come into this week, as we intentionally find times of resting in you, getting out of the world and getting into you, will you just continue to pour out your peace on us? That it might be something we crave in and through our week. We give to you now, as Nick started us off with today, the things that cause us anxiety, we intentionally lay them at your feet. Will you give us that same peace that you carried on the boat that allowed you to sleep through a storm, Jesus? Will you give us that same peace in our hearts and our minds right now? Transform our minds that we will see things from your perspective. We trust you, Father.